Without further ado, today my guest is Frank Clark, president of Lewis & Clark, Inc., serial entrepreneur, amazing coach, and to many, Mr. Orange, if you know him as such. We do as well here. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking through how you're navigating this, how you're taking your business through it, and just provide us some insights for today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, April, for having me on your show today. It's exciting and it's challenging. Let's not, it's a challenging world we're living in, but we're all in the same boat at the same time. So let's hope we're all rowing in the same direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's one thing is that, that no one person or one business or industry has been singled out. So we're all affected by it, and then we can all respond together with it. So we can all join arms in this time, which is exactly what we're doing here today.
Absolutely.
So Frank, talk to us about who you are, your business, what you guys do, and who you do it for.
Sure. Well, I have a couple of businesses. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old, so I've always had something going on. But in my adult life, I buy and sell electronic production equipment. And what that means is I get involved with electronic factories, anything from Whirlpool to dashboards to missiles for Raytheon to medical products. It doesn't matter. If it's built electronically, anywhere a factory in the world, they're probably a customer of mine. And I buy up all the robotics, the automation, all the testing, cleaning, inspection equipment. I refurbish it and repurpose it somewhere else in the world. I've also had companies that we buy the entire factory, we auction them off. I have a service company that does installations and training and spare parts. So we try to handle all assets of an electronic factory. And we've been doing this for over 30 years. We're kind of very well known in our space. Mm-hmm. On top of that, I also really, truly enjoy, and this is one of my passions, is to coach individuals, those that are transitioning, probably at that, I call it the midlife opportunity point, right? Where they're maybe lost a job, or maybe their significance was based around their family or their children or their position. And now things have transitioned, things have changed. And I'm a really great reboot coach, if you will, help people get back on track. And I love small businesses. I love all aspects of small business, marketing, sales, all of it. So I do a lot of business consulting and some public speaking around that as well. So those are my passions.
Wow. It's interesting helping people navigate through times of transition is what I heard. And yes. Wow, that is really needed right now.
Absolutely. I didn't know that it would be a virus that would be added to the things we would be talking about. But
right.
What the heck, right? Let's deal with this one too.
It's definitely a transition. It's definitely changing where people may find their significance, how they set up their day, how they plan their activities. A whole host of things are changing right now. So Sure. Tell us how you guys are coping right now. Like how has this affected business? How are you guys coping?
Well, the first thing you have to cope with is people's fear, right? I mean, people tend to go to fear faster than they go to positivity. So, as a business leader, addressing that first, customers, vendors, staff, deal with what's real, and look at what the situation is today, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but what it is right today. And I would say as a company, we're coping fairly well, mainly because again, we sell to the electronic sector, and businesses that are working for the military or medical professions, they have to stay open, and we service those companies. So our business has actually been getting very busy over the last couple of months.
I would imagine.
So yeah. But it is challenging. It's very dynamic. I mean, we buy and sell equipment all over the world. So, a deal I just did in Italy, well, now it's sitting in a container and not going anywhere, as the Army's not going to let it move. So, you have to be able to be flexible and move with the time.
Sure.
So we're coping okay, actually.
Yeah. So is your staff office, field, all of the above? I mean, I imagine you've got a mix of different roles.
Yeah, we do. We have a service center down in Florida that's got, technicians, engineers. We also have salespeople and accounting people, HR individuals for our staff up in New England. And we do have people that are in the factory. And the people that have to be sitting next to each other on a day-to-day basis, they're the ones that are most affected and want answers fast. The rest of the staff, can be working out of their homes, through Zoom meetings like we're having right now. All of our sales meetings are done that way now. So yeah, so we have a mix of different people, and they are all over the country.
Sure. Sure. Are you one of the things that's come up on some of these interviews is just the transition. If you had staff that was in the office that is not accustomed to working remote, have you guys put anything in place to help them with that transition? Do you have any tools that you could share on, hey, these are some things that we did to help people that are accustomed to all sitting in an office now working remote, and how to manage, distraction, or how to show up most effectively in our roles right now?
Well, what's funny is, we've been integrating Zoom, this tool, just as part of our meetings. We have forecast meetings that are done this way. But, we have people that they don't want to have their face shown on a screen. They'll sit in a room with you,
Yeah.
they'll put their face on a screen. It's like, oh, they become a different human being. So, being flexible, yes, I guess, is the tool that we're using. I mean, conference calls that are done to get everybody involved, but mainly through tools like Zoom, where you can actually see people and touch them and go, okay, keep that one of those modalities alive, the visual modality alive with your team.
Sure.
So yeah, we're using this tool quite a bit.
Sure. Now, as far as meetings and things like that, so we've heard a mix. Some people are still doing their morning huddle at 9 a.m. Some people have just scaled back meetings. Are you guys still, what's the meeting schedule look like? How are you still connected with your team continuously? Is it through Zoom? Is it through other chats?
Yeah, no, it's through Zoom mainly.
Okay.
Obviously, text messaging, WhatsApp, different ways that we can reach out. Email still is a great, but it's always targeted at the whole team. I think communication is really, really key right now, and whatever methodology you're using it, just making sure that everybody's informed on a regular basis, so they're all, like I said, the boat's going in the same direction.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So what are some of the other hurdles that you're facing? And if you've already made it over the hurdle, if you could share how you did make it over that hurdle.
Well, some of the hurdles that we're dealing with, again, because we're international, is dealing with different cultures and how they're handling the situation. What tends to happen when panic hits is people start to blame, and they start to think that somebody's screwing them or somebody's taking advantage of them. And that's not really the case. I mean, the people in Italy that have our equipment that can't ship right now, they're not getting paid. They're not working. They're not moving. And I don't think that they sign up every single day and say, how can my life be more miserable than it already is, right? They would like to see a situation change too.
Yeah.
So the way to navigate, honestly, through this stuff is to have an element of grace and forgiveness of yourself and other people, and just basically take a step back and be patient. Patience is going to go a long ways nowadays. We're all in the same boat. We're all delayed. Okay. And understanding that, we tend to live in a have it now society and have it now world, instant gratification. Okay. Well, guess what? That's going to be tomorrow or maybe May. Right. So slow down, slow down.
I love what you said about navigating this with some grace. And, one of the things that came up on our earlier calls is just that we have to be incredibly compassionate and empathetic during this time, because everybody is handling this differently. And some people do go to blame, and some people go to politics, and other people go to, dancing cat videos. Everybody's got a way to cope, right?
Armageddon. The world's ending right now, right? Religion, whatever it is that makes people feel they can justify their situation, because people want to be right?
Yeah.
They all want to be heard, and they want to be validated.
Yeah. And it also, in addition to being right, some people go to what they know, because there's comfort in that. So if you can argue over, say, politics, but no, by no means do I want to make this political, but sometimes that's what people know and they're comfortable with. So if we can go to a safe place and make it about something that we know and understand, it's easier, it's more palatable than something that's big and nebulous and this virus that we can't see or control. I think sometimes people are just going to what they know, and then you can kind of fight that enemy that you know on your turf versus fighting this other thing that's a little bit more ambiguous and scary.
Yeah, well, we'll take them off of that turf, right? Everybody understands fear. Everybody understands grace. Everybody understands forgiveness. Yes, we all have different opinion on politics and religion and all that stuff, but we're all pretty common when it comes to vulnerability and fear. Sure. We all have some of that. And I think when you get people change their state, if you will, to use some Tonyisms here, right? We're both familiar with that culture. Change somebody's state so that when you're looking at their physiology and you're looking at their language, how's their self-talk going on, and what are they really focusing on right now? Are they focusing on what's great in their life, or are they focusing on a problem that doesn't even really exist at this moment, right?
Sure.
So
Sure. Can you talk us through, so for listeners that aren't familiar, the reference is Tony for Tony Robbins. Frank and I share that world quite a bit. Can you talk us through what changing their state looks like, whether that's staff, whether that's your family or your community? Talk us through what that looks like.
Sure. In that space, that's a great question. State management basically has three components to it. One is your physiology, which we all have control over, right? I can smile. I can choose to smile. I can choose to stand up. Or I can choose to take on a physiology that's indicative of depression and fear. I can be withdrawn, and my body will take on that position. I can also, the second component of state management is language. What are we saying to ourselves? In some cases, if we had a roommate that talked to us the way we talk to us, we'd kick them on their ass, right? So, you can't live here, okay? So let's find a better way to say something, right? If there's a problem, great. The problem is up until now. The problem is right this minute. It's not, let's be careful what we say and what we project, because what you state and your physiology, it's contagious, very contagious. And the last component of it is obviously focus. Those three things we have 100% control over. I can focus on what's good, or I can focus on what's bad. I can say what's good, or I can say what's bad. I can sit down, or I can stand up. All three things we have massive control over. And that's when you're constantly thinking in terms of how can I manage my state, and especially as a business owner, to take a leadership state. A leadership state is positive. A leadership state is affirming. A leadership state is, let's steer the ship again. Focus here on the positive. Focus on what's good.
Sure.
And stay in that direction. So yeah, we have control over that. And that's what state management really is.
Absolutely. And just to tag up on that, Frank, a lot of people that aren't as familiar with state management think that, well, I don't feel like doing it, so they don't want to make their body do it. They feel like sitting down with shoulders slumped and they feel small. And what we have to understand is, get your body to do it and your brain will follow suit. So you can look at someone and see that they're feeling down or feeling low or maybe feeling scared. Even if you don't feel like it, jump out of your chair, be big, be loud, be bold, make a move that is powerful. And it will change the way that you're showing up. It doesn't matter what you feel like doing. Just command your body to do it and your brain gets in line. Not at first, it'll take a second, but your brain does get in line. So
it'll catch up.
It sure does. It sure does. So how are you doing this? How are you showing up in this time as a leader for staff, for relatives, whatever that looks like? And how intentional are you about how you're showing up for them? And what does demonstrating leadership like right now look like for you?
Well, demonstrating leadership obviously is managing your state, right? And the first place that you show up, especially on a call like this, we're visual, we're auditory, right? Kinesthetically, I can't touch you, but I can have a feeling that the emotes from the conversation, right? It can be positive and uplifting, or it can be focused on negativity. As a leader, you constantly have to maintain that. And there's a phrase that I like, and that's always to put some time between stimulus and response. Don't overreact right away. When somebody says something to you that's negative, you don't have to answer right away. When somebody says something positive to you, you don't have to answer right away. Okay, take a second, process, and then answer. Yeah. Right? Don't jump to conclusions. Don't jump to bandwagon. Right? A little bit of time between stimulus and response, especially in this time, goes a long way.
Create space between stimulus and response. Well said. Real quick, I just want to pause for a moment. So I see that comments are coming in via the cell phone, but we're not seeing it through the Zoom platform. So if we have not acknowledged you or responded, my apologies. I'm going to try to move over so that I'm actually seeing Facebook and we can see the comments. So we'll see how that goes. It's not going to go. So we're just going to have to continue in the way that we're doing it right now, guys. Oh, there we go. No, we're good. So
thank you, everybody, for all the comments.
Thank you for all the comments that we're not acknowledging or responding to. Right. If you do have a comment and we haven't responded, please send us a DM. We're going to, as I mentioned yesterday, Facebook Live changed their platform. So now we're using Zoom as an integrator, which means we don't always see the comments real time. So it looks like I'm actually seeing a few of them right now. So please continue to comment. So we're pivoting in the moment. Here we go again.
Real time.
Real time pivot. So there was a thing I wanted to touch on, demonstrating leadership. The other thing, we're talking about changing states, but also just changing focus when we're talking about, again, to use some common language, managing your triad of meaning, right? what we're focused on. So one thing that we found really, really beneficial in our team is that if conversation starts, so we had a meeting yesterday afternoon, and naturally it's people from all around the world that haven't talked for a few days, and they get on and they're sharing what's going on now. Well, here's what's going on in my country. Here's what's going on in my state. And I let that go for a little bit, right? And then I needed to wrangle it in and point it in the right direction. And a really simple way to do that. So whether this is if you're a leader managing a team or you're managing your family or your community, is, people have to err a little. They have to let off a little steam, and I get that. But then ask them about what's going right. Like talk to me about what's working. Talk to me about the opportunities. So I redirected the call. Okay, everybody, we're going to share a win, or we're going to share an opportunity that exists now that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. And just that simple question completely changes the focus, because again, everybody's looking at the doors that are closed. Oh, well, I can't go to my Orange Theory class, or my kid can't go to soccer class, or we can't have our morning huddles at the factory. Those are all true statements, but we have to keep retraining our brain to be looking for all the windows that now have opened, whether it's obvious or we have to pry them open. Some of them we have to pry open, but I'm seeing people real time pivot their business and how they're approaching life. I mean, instantaneously. There are gifts that are coming out of this time, not to diminish the challenge that exists. It's very real, but there are gifts in our business and our personal life if we choose to focus on them. And it is a choice, guys. It is a choice. So let's see. What opportunities are you seeing? You mentioned about medical supplies. Have you seen an uptick in business because of this? Or I imagine it's going to be streaming here shortly to you.
We've been very busy. Companies that manufacture medical products, obviously the military as well, they're not closing. And a lot of companies, especially the Asian market, are starting to come back. You've got to understand that they had a 2-month jump on us. Right. So how we're reacting is a little bit later than they are. And, I've heard the factories are up and running in China again. In Singapore, they're almost business as usual to some degree. Right. Thailand is starting to move forward a lot faster. I mean, these are the stories I'm hearing. Japan is pretty much open right now. So, the international markets are starting to become more open. And yeah, we're going to have to ride this through. We're late to the game. We're late to the party, right? And as a nation that unfortunately, I hate to say this, but as a nation that's fairly litigious, we're also a nation that tends to be a lot more cautious and a lot more guarded for that reason. And that slows down progress. That slows down the opportunities to make things happen fast, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But sorry, April.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, opportunities. I mean, right now, it's just an amazing amount of opportunities. When you're slow, right? I think if you sat down with everybody in your company and said, okay, I have listened to this excuse for a million years, and that is, I don't have enough time. Okay. So I don't have enough time to fill in the blanks. I don't have enough time to learn how to cook. I don't have enough time to go to the gym. I don't have enough time to spend time with my kids. I don't have enough time to go on vacation. Pick the million reasons and write them all down. Okay, and in your business, what do you now have time to do? Well, guess what you have time to do? Everybody loves a handwritten note, right? Why don't you sit down and write out thank you cards to every one of your customers and mail them? Take a week and just sit down and write something beautiful. Why don't you change your website so that you put a little video on there and you tell your staff why they're important and why you care? Why don't you tell your customers why they're important and why you're there with them, right? Why it matters. Why don't you take the time to do the things that you say you don't have time for, right?
Wow.
These are great opportunities to listen and to be empathetic and to be grateful and to put into place things that demonstrate gratitude. Yeah. That you've always put off.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a really good point. Really good point. I love the handwritten message in the video to the staff as well. That's so critical. And the interesting thing is, one thing that connects us all is that everyone's going through this. And so I think the humanness of it all, that's a real blessing I think we're going to get out of this. I mentioned yesterday that we're so accustomed to seeing people's highlight reel. And now we're seeing everyone's messy backstory, and that's okay, because it just reminds us of our commonalities. It's easy to focus on how we are different. But as you mentioned earlier, we're very, very, very similar. We've got little idiosyncrasies, but they're not nearly as dramatic as we think they are, or like to think they are.
Right.
We still experience, fear and vulnerability in the same ways, and lots of people have experienced that. So it
We're not
connects us as humans.
we're not as significant as we think we really
That's
are.
true.
Right?
That's true.
Right.
Very true. So talk to me about some of the resources that you could share. And again, they can be business, maybe it's software you're using. It could be personal, that you're using Insight Timer app at night for meditation, anything that's helping you manage this well.
Well, and we talked about this yesterday on the phone. One of the resources that I find are right under your nose. Every company has systems in place, right? Or they have an idea of a system that they want to put in place. And the system is only as good as the people that use it, right? So in our company, we have an inventory control system. And you know what? It sucks. So, so now's the time to sit down and revamp our inventory control system. There's people that have CRM, their database management tools, right? Okay, well, are you updating that? Are you putting all the connections that you have in there? Is it not the time to update maybe your database with, hey, by the way, Johnny Joe over here is married to Sally Sue, and they have a dog, and they have 3 kids, and they like to vacation in Aspen, and all the little personal notes that connect you with that, give you that bonding and rapport. You have systems in place. You have accounting systems in place. You probably have HR systems in place. You have a marketing system in place. You have a sales process in place. You have tools in your own company. You don't have to look outside for the next magic wand, okay? Take and develop or get friendly with the systems you already have in place, and make them so efficient and make them so user-friendly that you just can't wait for things to start getting active again, because now you're ready.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. There's so many leaders that do not want to go into the inventory systems or the CRM, right? That's the Badlands, right? It's a good time to take a look at that.
Exactly. Learn it. Learn the CRM, right? So many people don't even know how to use it. Well, they don't. And if you don't know how to use it, or if they're afraid of it, then they're going to avoid it, right?
Absolutely.
So, make people comfortable. Take one at a time. Say, okay, guys, what we're going to do today is, guess what? We're going to count stuff, but we're going to do it a fun way. Right?
Absolutely.
We're going to show you how to do it.
Absolutely.
So, I don't think we need more tools. I think we just need to pay attention to the ones we have.
Sure.
Right?
That's a good point. Is there any habits that you've established this time, or rather maybe you had a host of habits that you were doing before and they're still non-negotiables now, whether that's a morning routine, working out, what habits are helping with this time?
Well, yeah, I like to work out, but I like to be in a gym. I like to box and I like to lift weights and all that stuff, right? So now that's changed. But I think the habits that you have, if you have a habit of meditation or if you have a habit of exercise, there's plenty of videos online. You can certainly change your workout out. Go outside and jump some rope for a little while. Do some jumping jacks. Just get your body moving, right? Because motion creates emotion. And whatever habit you have.
Talk on that real quick, Frank.
That motion creates emotion?
Yeah. Explain that to the listeners.
Yeah, when you're moving your body, okay, you're creating endorphins and dopamine in your system, right? When you're stagnant, you create cortisol. Cortisol is a stress agent. And, a body in motion creates energy. And that energy, basically it gets your metabolism going, so your digestive system is better, because let's face it, if we're going to be stuck in the house, guess what? The Oreos are going to start looking pretty good. And so are the Doritos.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
They looked good before I ate them.
All that stuff you didn't want to eat before, oh, guess what? That's a staple of life now. I can't get to Publix. I can't go to the grocery store. So you got to maybe overdo a little bit of the exercising and moving your body, right? So if that's a habit that you have, like a habit maybe, fasting. How about if you just don't eat for a while, right? What if you try that on for a little while?
Yeah.
Or you try drinking more water. Or you try meditating, like you said, right? Maybe there's plenty of apps out there to do that. I like the one that's called Breathe. You can put that one on your phone, Breethe. It's a beautiful guided meditation app. I like that. Certain habits that you have, if they were outside, like Orange Theory or whatever, you're going to have to compromise. And so find a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
Find a different athletic event that you do. Instead of lifting, lift your furniture, clean your house.
It's true. It's true.
Right?
And again, what are we doing other than stop looking at the door that closed and finding all the windows, right? That's exactly right. So is there any things that you're staying away from right now? And so to give context, some of the things that have come up on these these interviews were, okay, I'm limiting the amount of time that I'll look at the news, or I'm limiting the amount of time I'll look at my social feed, or just really trying to control how much energy they're going to, because we're focus goes, energy flows as well. So if we're only focused on this one thing, we're sending all our energy to that, and it makes it hard to get anything else done. So is there anything you're staying away from right now?
Well, you pretty much said it. I'm not as glued to the news. I like to get my 10 minutes of CNN and 10 minutes of Fox. Give me both perspectives on the world right now, okay? and I'm good. So I have both sides of the coin. I obviously like to stay in touch with other leaders that are in my industry that are in different parts of the world, because if they're seeing relief, that's a message I want to make sure that my team knows about. If there's anything that's positive that's happening somewhere else, then there's hope here in the States, right? So passing on hope. And the things I'm staying away from is negativity. I don't really want to hear it. I believe in the serenity prayer. And the serenity prayer is, God, give me the strength to, manage the things that I can, and the courage, the wisdom to know the difference, right? Of the things that I can't. So, I'm not saying it exactly right, but I've been saying it every day. Of course, now I'm on the spot. So, here we go. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom to change the things,
the courage to
change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
You got it. You nailed it.
Boom.
You nailed it. There we go.
All right.
And keeping in mind the things that you do have control over, exactly what, the things that you do have control over, manage those. Sending all your energy to things that you can't influence, you're kind of
it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. But instead, putting your focus on the things that you can influence, the things you can change. You can get real familiar with your CRM right now. I know you don't want to, but you can. Or handwritten notes. Or this is a great time to take up an online training. We have Insanity and P90X and all the things that we did before. Well, those all got dusted off because nobody's going to the gym right now. There are lots of opportunities that exist right now. And I think it's good to limit, okay, this is how much of the news or the media that I'm taking in. And then after that, I'm going to focus on what I can control. And when people are kind of going down that trail, remind them of, what can you control? Let's focus on the things that we actively can control. It's okay to air some concerns, but you need to limit it. Kind of like the concept of 90 seconds of suffering, right? Like, limit how much time you're going to say, okay, I'm going to be worried for this amount of time. And then I'm going to do my best. And this is an exercise. This doesn't happen the first time. And it may not happen the second time, but I'm going to do my best to change my mindset and not focus on that. And that's a struggle right now, but it's absolutely possible. And I had a call this morning at 5:30 with a group that I work with every Wednesday morning. And we open with a word. So I open all my meetings, all my mastermind calls with one word open, and then I close it, one word close. And wouldn't you know it, of the 6 people calling in from all over, I'll tell you, I have it right here because it was a call this morning. I had 2 blessed, I had 2 gratefuls, I had a pumped up. This is how they started a 5:30 a.m. call in times like this. And I just had to stop the call and I said, you guys are not the norm. In fact, I called them unicorns. I acknowledge that the way they were managing their mindset through this is amazing. But here's the thing. I know you and I both value personal development a lot.
Absolutely.
We again, run in the same circles. These people that I'm working with, they've spent a significant amount of time dropping tools in their tool belt to manage situations like this. So no one could have predicted exactly the scenario. But whether it's this or the housing crisis or a job loss or a business closure, all these things evoke similar responses in us, right? Fear and uncertainty and all these things, and blame. Blame definitely rides shotgun to all of these things when we feel overexposed and vulnerable. And yet, that's how these people were navigating. These are people that I work with a lot, and here they are navigating this very well. That doesn't mean they don't have fears, but I loved hearing what their opening words were. And then when we closed after the hour call, it was very similar. It was, super excited. There was excitement. There was a lot of gratitude, ready to begin, ready to inspire, all these just really motivational things. And I'm like, go out there and influence people, because we are all influencers. We can't kid ourselves that we're not we're influencing people. So whether we're the leaders in our organization or in our community, we're influencing people. And let's be really intentional about the influence that we're doing right now.
Right. And you're a very influential person, April. You know, you like attracts like, right? So you put out a lot of positive energy out in the world. I'm not surprised that the 6 people that showed up at your call were all very energetic and pumped up and gratitude and grateful and jazzed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you are the
Absolutely.
company of the energy you put out there. So
Thank
yeah.
you, Frank. And likewise, you do the same thing. I see that you're very intentional about your content and the way that you show up. And I'll never forget, I watched Frank be Mr. Orange at Date with Destiny in Fort Lauderdale. I'll never forget. It was fantastic. And I'm like, this is a guy I need to know. And lo and behold, look how it all shook out. So I'm glad that it worked out. So talk
Likewise.
to us about a couple other things. So let's see, we had a couple of things. You mentioned about, hey, some of the markets in Asia are already opening up, and I'm connected. Obviously, you run a global organization. Things have already turned around in some places. And again, I just want to give pause real quick and say, not to diminish what's happening now. We still need to follow guidelines and listen to trusted experts
Exactly.
on what needs to happen. But I think it's really important to help people understand this is a chapter in our book. This isn't the book.
Right.
So we're in a season, and it's a tough season for many. But, you know, is there anything that you're doing to help people kind of, whether that's strategic visualization, to help people understand that this is a season and this is what it's going to look like afterwards? Like this too shall pass, and things will be different, but different isn't always bad.
Yeah. We're asking people to take this and say, okay, there are seasons, right? Like you mentioned, right? And this is a winter of some sort. That's an extended winter, okay? The groundhog did not do his job properly, okay?
Damn groundhog.
A gopher, rather, right? So the gopher, that's just 9 more months of winter. Okay, so we're having a few more months of winter here.
Sure.
And again, you know, you can either say, oh, it's too cold to go outside. You can say, hey, it's snowing. Let's strap on the skis and go have a good time, right? There's always 2 ways to look at a winter. You know, winters are a time when people tend to be scared and they hold on to their cash, or it's a time to invest. There are great opportunities out there. If markets start to crash, that's the time to buy. Right? There's times that you want to take advantage of situations that appear to be very negative. You know, our company, and I ripped this off from another guy who gave me permission to do it, but our mission statement in our company is very simple. It's to do your best, do the right thing, and show other people that you care. That's it. It's pretty simple, right? So every day, you know, a reminder of that is our mission statement. How can we show somebody else that we care? How can we do the right thing right in this position right now? Okay. How can we do our absolute best? Well, if you're following those guidelines, the answers come to you pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, it's bringing people back to the focus of what's important, and not necessarily having, again, to create a lot of new things, but to bring people back to the basics. You know, it's kind of like, you know, teaching somebody how to lose weight. Well, you know, it's called 2 fingers. Push away from the refrigerator. Eat less, exercise more. Pretty simple, right? I could sell you this great system, but getting back to just simple plans, right? Be grateful. Imagine tomorrow if you woke up with only the things that you're grateful for today, right? Answer that question. So if I wasn't grateful for my eyes, wasn't grateful for my hearing, wasn't grateful for my kids, wasn't grateful for the fact that I live in this country, wasn't grateful for my freedoms, I wouldn't have them. Well, it's easy to find things you can be grateful for when you have that kind of mindset. So get back to some of that simplicity. You know, this is a great time also, I think, to listen, to shut up and just listen. Be quiet. Let other people, let your staff create the results that you're talking about, right? Let them participate in the solution and listen.
Yeah.
You know, be empathetic, listen, allow their vulnerabilities to be heard, but don't let it become, you know, a crying fest, and don't let it become a pity party. All right, great. This is the situation. I identify, I acknowledge the situation. Now, what are 3 solutions to that problem? Right? What are 3 ways we can turn this into a positive?
Yeah.
How can we manifest something great that none of our competitors are doing even? How can we have a competitive advantage right now? How can we maybe focus more on social media? How can we focus more on that client appreciation moment, right? How can we take time just to pick up the phone and call, go, hey, how's your business doing? Not trying to sell anything. How is your business doing? What's going on in your world? How can we support what you have going on right now? Great. People love that conversation. They would love to hear, instead of being sold or freaking out, or, you know, how can I help?
Yeah. Yeah. A wise person recently told me that that's when relationships are really forged, in times of celebration and times of sorrow. And for some people, they are experiencing sorrow. And so us showing up and standing witness to their business, to their lives, and just listening really makes the difference. Because some people are navigating this very well. We're talking about it. Your mindset's obviously really, really dialed in and you're navigating it well, but those around you may not be. And so you don't know when that phone call is just perfectly timed, that, man, I really needed that. And yesterday I've 2 young kids at home. We'll say in captivity right now. And so my 6 and 9-year-old were a little antsy in the afternoon. So I said, we're going on an adventure, which I start lots of sentences like that with them. And so we threw them in the car and I had a bag of chalk and we went around, but I said we had to do it that nobody saw us. So to keep them from wanting to go ring the doorbell. And we went around to all their neighborhood kids that were friends of theirs and wrote on the sidewalk, wrote messages to them.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it was just I've seen people writing on sidewalk. I saw a couple of posts on that and I thought, we're going to do it to all our friends. We're going to tag them, which I learned did not translate well for my friend that was Polish. She's like, wait, I'm sorry. What does this mean? What did you do to my house? No, we just wrote with sidewalk chalk. It washes off. But just doing that simple thing, it was simple. We did it for fun, and we did it because, I explained to the girls that this is a way for us to help other people and invest, and it makes us feel good, but it makes them feel good when they get to run out of the house and see that, we love you, we miss you, we drew flowers on some of the houses and stuff like that. And it's just such a simple thing, but you never know who might really have needed that message right now, who might really go, gosh, I just give me a sign to get through this. And they walk out and they see that flowers have been drawn on the outside of the house. Right. Just showing up like that. That's really good. And you were talking about, then it rained last night. So I hope the kids saw it before it rained, because that may have not worked out the way
Well, they get a chance to do it again. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot about gratitude. Can you talk to us about, again, for the listeners that maybe aren't as familiar with the strong gratitude practice, the idea of how gratitude and fear typically can't exist in the same place in the same time, that gratitude is often the antidote for fear. Are you using it in that way? And can you give a little context to that?
I don't think we focus on saying gratitude is the cure for fear. I just know that by doing it, it's kind of like saying, exercise is the cure for cortisol, or cure for cancer, or, a cure for depression.
Sure.
It's focus on doing that. I coach a lot of people. That's part of my businesses. And I always ask people to start a gratitude journal, and every day before they go to bed to write the 10 things that they're most grateful for, and start their morning off exactly the same way. And there are people that are like, oh, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything at all. Well, do you have a roof over your head? Yeah. Do you have a bed you're laying in? Yeah. Do you have your fingers to write it? Yep. You have eyes? Can you write? Can you read? Yep. Okay. There's 5 right there. All right. And sometimes people are like, oh my God, I just don't want to put that pillow over her head tonight, or have somebody show me.
I'm grateful I did not.
I'm grateful I didn't commit a crime today.
It's a win. It's still a win.
It's a win. We'll take it. Right. But yeah, you actually force people to write something down. Okay. Make it a part of your day. Make gratitude a task. You have to check the box. I didn't do it. Okay, you go back and do it now, right? Get it done. But you're right. They cannot live in the exact same place. Fear and gratitude cannot. Depression and gratitude can't necessarily live in the same place, right? If you find yourself being depressed, you find yourself, in a negative tailspin, add the words "up until now."
My God. I have a similar, until now. That's the thing. I have a similar approach. Love it.
Yeah, up until, or if you're making global statements like all people are this, all women, and all guys, add the statement, unless I'm wrong.
Ooh,
unless I'm wrong.
I haven't heard that one. That's good, Frank.
Unless they're not,
Oh, that's good. I got to write that down. Yeah. So we use until now a lot whenever someone has a limiting belief and they say something. It came up on one of our calls like, oh, well, in typical me fashion, I such and such. And we all jumped in and said, until now, because you can change that. That's a decision. So, and earlier you said, from a business perspective, how can we have a competitive advantage now? Man, that is gold, because what you've done is obviously asked an open-ended question. that gets the wheels turning. Because again, we're shutting a lot of things right now off in our mind and looking at things that maybe are more challenging. But when you ask a question like, how can we have a competitive advantage right now? Man, it's just the ideas start really moving. We came up with that on our team. So we were launching a digital course on time management and productivity, and we put the brakes on it. We were releasing at a big event in San Jose that was recently canceled. And we kind of sat there for a second, kind of shaking our heads. Oh man, we're going to have to put this on hold. And then my team looked and said, wait a second, we were releasing a digital course on time management and productivity. It's more needed now than ever, because people are sitting at home having to manage all the distractions that are sitting at home, and they're struggling with productivity. So just reframing it of, well, the competitive advantage is not a lot of people are releasing this, and there's a huge need. Right. I said, you guys might be onto something. I might have to listen to you guys. I think they're brilliant and wonderful, and they're right. And we're going to take a look at that, but just ask that question. Sure. What is our competitive advantage right now? What could we do that our competitors are not doing right now? Because there are still people that are still, they're still focused on the changes and not pivoting. So if you can pivot quickly, there's going to be an advantage to that.
Absolutely. And there's always something, some little tiny, it doesn't, 2 millimeter shift, right? 1 degree change, right? That whole 212 theory, right? That 211 degrees, water is hot. 212, it boils. Right? 1 degree creates steam. Steam moves a locomotive, hot water does not. What's the 1 degree shift in your entire business? What's the 1 degree shift in your life? What's the 1 degree shift in your attitude?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Makes the hugest difference over a period of time.
And it might be just shifting your business so that it functions well remotely, virtually. And maybe it's getting on Zoom calls quicker. Maybe it's utilizing Slack or Asana or Teamworks or some tool that makes you able to be up and running virtually very, very quick. Maybe it's putting some kind of plan in place to support, there's a group that I'm a part of that they're really struggling from a tech perspective, having kids at home, and there's kids coming in the background of the calls. Hey, that's just real life right now. Right. Thinking about how do you help your employees address that, and like, hey, it is, and it's a little messy, and that's okay. But thinking ahead, thinking quick and responding quick while everybody else is a little slow to respond will serve you well. Because, I mentioned this the other day, this is a time where some people will step down, but lots of other people will step up. And be the person that steps up during this time. It will serve you from a professional standpoint, but a personal standpoint. This is when leadership is really demonstrated, and this is the time to do it.
Exactly. There's a Clint Black song. It says, it's called Halfway Up. And part of the lyrics in the song is, one man's halfway up is another man's halfway down. And, it puts things in perspective as to where you're really at, right? You think you're struggling? Well, where your struggle might be somebody's life's dream. To live where you live, or to have what you have, or to even be able to be in the same city as you, or drive the same car as you, or your struggles are somebody's goals at some level. Wow. Right?
That's beautifully said. So. Yeah. In our mastermind, there's a phrase that we say a lot, which is what's in your rearview mirror is on someone else's vision board.
Exactly.
And so we got to appreciate those things. And again, comes back to gratitude again.
Absolutely. 100%.
So if there was one thing that you, I want to open this up for questions, guys, but I don't know that we're seeing it all. We're seeing cheers. We see email, call, text. We've seen Victor, love you, baby. You're out there commenting, love it. I see Mark on there. I saw Ben. I've seen quite a few people cheering us on. Again, if you have questions and we can't actually see them real time, please send them to us separately. But Frank, if there was you've already given us a wealth of amazing advice and insight, and I really appreciate this. Something that you'd want to tell people, words of encouragement, words of hope, kind of leave us with a parting message, and then we'll have just one follow-up question after that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that people can do really is to look at the people that are really struggling here. Okay. April, you and I have an advantage that we can make our incomes online. We coach people, right? We have a distinct advantage to be able to do that, but not everybody else does. There are people in the service industry that are losing their jobs. There are arenas full of people that serve concessions, that are like nail technicians, massage people that run, work at a gym. For those who have any level of affluence, and we all have some level of affluence, okay? We all do on this planet. reach out to the people that don't, or that are really struggling, and overtip them. You know, be extra nice to them right now. I can get choked up on this because it's so important to me, you know. But be that leadership, you know. If you're in Starbucks, okay, or you're in a line someplace, pay it forward. Pay for the guy behind you, right? And just tell people to pay it forward. Do something that's above and beyond what you normally would do to the people in the world that really need it. And you know who they are. You know who they are. So reach out to them and say, what can I do to help your life be better today? And pay it forward. Always keep paying it forward. Keep thinking about what you can do to somebody else that's a little less fortunate than you are. That's the one piece of advice I could see. Because if everybody did that, right? One person, you help one other person, they help one other person. You know, we're all still going to be in this pandemic, but we can at least smile through it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. No, that's absolutely right. And just hearing that, no doubt that the people that are hearing this, it will inspire them and inspire them to action. We talk a lot about on the podcast that we can't just be consumers of content, right? We actually have to execute on the content. We actually have to turn this off and say, now, what am I going to do right now? And so what Frank just shared, that's what you can do right now. So you can pour into someone else right now. It can be one person, it could be 5 people, but there are people that you're seeing right now, hearing from, that you can think of right now that need you. They need the greatness within you. They need you to show up for them. And whether that's over tipping, whether that's a kind word, just saying, hey, how are you doing? And actually stopping to listen. Chris Hogan talks about this concept of drive-by leadership. Like, don't do drive-by leadership where you're like, hey, how are you? And you don't, you don't actually stop to listen to what your staff says. Let's not do drive-by humanity right now. Like, let's actually ask and say, how are you? You know, what can I help with? Is there something that I can do to help you through this time? And then listen. And sometimes it's just listening. That's what people need most.
That's all it takes. Just listen, you know, have an empathetic ear and just be there for somebody. You know?
Absolutely.
Social distance, though, of course.
So my interview yesterday, Mike Forrester said a great line. He said, I don't think we should be calling this social distancing. He said, it's physical distancing. He said, but this is the time to be social. And I thought,
great point. Great point. Yeah, great piece of advice.
Shout out to Mike Forrester. So Frank, how can we, you know, you've invested in us today. You've shared time, no doubt. You've got a lot of things going on right now and really appreciate that. How do we invest in you? How do we support either you and your business during this time?
Well, you know, you can support my business by paying it forward. Okay. You know, I feel great and I feel that my purpose on the planet here is to inspire and lead. And if people got anything from our call today and they took it into their own heart and they did something about it, then great. That's payment. If you want to reach out to me, my coaching business is themrorange.com. You can reach me at frank@themrorange.com. And my electronics company is Lewis and Clark, named after the founders. My last name is Clark. My partner was named Lewis.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so at our website is www.lewis-clark.com. So you can hit us up either way, or you just private message me, or through you, April, and I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Frank.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.